Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, back when there was magic and knights and dragons and princesses were something to be fought for, lived a beautiful princess. In fact, not only is she the most beautiful in all the land, she was the most kind, compassionate, gentle, loving person throughout the entire known world. And a dragon, as so it was, kidnapped her and stole her away, locking her under an evil spell. Now, many knights went to rescue her for the fame and the promise of marriage, but let me focus on 3 knights in particular. The first knight went to go rescue this princess, and as he went, there was great fanfare for the villagers, not having much entertainment, as in a lack of TV or things like YouTube, were able to watch this heroic feat to go on. So as the knight came in, he came into great hurrahs, and the local girls became as cheerleaders, rooting and swooning for their knight to come by. And as the first knight began to unsheath his glowing armor, for it was polished much and not been used very much, for he was kind of a little bit of a show-off, began to, fight with the dragon, and the girls swooned. And he started to break a sweat. So he turned to the girls and thought to himself, you know what, this is a lot of work. Maybe I should just go with one of the girls, because it's a lot smarter. And so he did. He packed up shop quite nightly and rode off into the distance with not 1, but 4 of the girls from the village. The second knight had different motivations for coming to save the princess. See, he was smitten. He had heard about her, and he was in love. He wanted to make her his wife. She wasn't a show-off prize. She was somebody he really wanted to be with. So he began to go into the village, and the same hurrah and parades were formed around him, and the girls again swooned. But he paid them no heed. He paid them not too much attention, because he was there for the princess. And so the battle began to get quite violent and vicious, and the girls didn't want to stay for that, and the rest of the villagers grew bored of the tiresome, weary battle. And so everyone left except for the knight's closest friends. And the battle got tense, and the dragon would swipe, and the knight would parry. And finally, there was an opening where the knight had his sword and was about to cut off the dragon's head when the dragon was a little bit too fast and snapped off his leg. Screaming in pain, his friends called out to him, "Retreat now! Give up now! For you lost your leg, but it's still time to save your life. For a princess, no girl is worth your life." So, heeding his friend's wisdom, he, in shame and in lots of pain, began to limp off into the distance as his friends' help carried the wounded and dejected knight home. The third knight also was in love with the princess, but more than that, he felt that he should save her, not necessarily just to make her his wife, but if she didn't want him, that he would free her, because he heard that she was the greatest and the most amazing and the most wonderful person in the land, and surely she should not be locked up in a dungeon with some dragon. So again, he came to much great fanfare, and the girls swooned, and all the villagers cheered for this rescuing knight. But he got into business and began to fight, and quickly they left, and battle raged. And his moment came when he saw the dragon's head, and he lunged, and the dragon again was too quick and bit off his arm. So his friends cried out, our friend, knight, give up now, for you lost your arm, but there's still time to save your life, for it's not worth it for some girl to lose your life." And he responded to them with pain as proof, as a lack of arm, but as the honest truth that I cannot give up now, and for she deserves to be saved. And if I have to give up my life, well, then that's what I have to do, because she must be saved. And he tied his arm so it wouldn't bleed with a piece of his clothes and began to continue to fight. And his friends, not being able to watch their friend die, left until it was just him and the dragon alone. And the battle got harder and tougher. And they worked back into the cave, clashing, slashing, talon to sword. Each clash echoing across the cavernous halls. Until the very point where the knight had no energy whatsoever. His armor was shattered and pieces of flesh stuck out. He could barely lift his arm anymore. And when the inevitable was ready to happen, he cried out with one last breath of strength, "I love her. I love her. I love her." And as he shouted that with every bit of his being, the very words echoed across the halls and shook the rock above the dragon and crashed down on the dragon's head. And he laid there motionless, dying, dead. And the princess, released from her magic spell, ran to her knight's side, crying, sobbing, for he had saved her life, as her tears dripped onto his face and she kissed him. Of course, as this being a once upon a time fairy tale, he came back to life. And he was restored more than he was before, because before he was alive in flesh, but his flesh now had been made new in love, and he was more whole and more complete than he had ever been. Even his arm had healed back. And so they lived happily ever after. So I hope you liked my story. I enjoyed telling it.